ready.
So, a couple years ago, I did a video called Top 10 Clone Troopers You Can Find for like $10 or less. And, gee, things are really different back then. It had awesome figures like that yellow Bark Trooper and this Phase 2 animated Clone Trooper. You could find him for like $10 back then. But times have changed. He's like $20-25 now, and good luck finding him for like under $50. If not more. I'm sure he's gone up even more in value because, let me tell you, clone troopers are just becoming more and more popular, and Hasbro is not producing enough to meet the crazy demand. Especially for Phase 2 animated, so many people want to scoop those up and make customs. Heck, I've made how many customs with that mold now? Like 3? Like, you know, Hasbro didn't repaint that, so a lot of people are just taking it in their own hands. So unfortunately, these older figures ain't gonna fly. So, because that old video is so outdated now, I figured it's about time I give it another go. And spoiler alert, this list is a lot lamer than the last one. I'm sorry. So, in no particular order, let's get on with it. These are 10 Clone Trooper figures that you can relatively easily find on their own for $10 or less. Relatively. Not all the time. Sometimes you might find it for like 12 or 15. But on my travels, I found these 10 for under $10 fairly easily on eBay. So let's get right into it. Let's start off really strong and exciting with the pre-posed Clone Troopers. You can find these guys. Namely just the plain white ones, both Phase 1 and Phase 2. You can typically find these guys for $10 or less each for something like this. Yeah, even these are getting a little expensive because, oh my goodness, when these came out, it was like $15 for 3 of them. So yeah, definitely tragic that this is something that's on the list. You know, you can find the pre-posed ones fairly easily, $10 or less. Whoop-de-doo. Anyways, let's switch it to something a little cooler, but also very similar in look. People really are sleeping on the Quick Draw Clone Trooper from Revenge of the Sith. This guy also saw Movie Heroes release. You can still find this guy for about $10. Now, some people may look at this figure and may think, oh, it's just a Clone Trooper with a stupid gimmick. You know, you squeeze his legs and, you know, he fires his gun. That's cool, number one. That's a cool gimmick. But number two, it doesn't hinder the figure itself. Actually, he has more articulation than a lot of other Clone Troopers because he can fully move his legs forward. And you can actually make him kneel pretty decently. Like, look at that. That's a pretty decent kneel right there. Like, he's a pretty poseable figure. And the sculpt is great. This is arguably one of the best Phase 2 helmets we've ever seen in 3 3/4 inch. And he also came with an alternate pauldron to make him, like, Imperial, like when they switch over. So that's really cool. And then also, come on, that's just a cool gimmick. Even when I was a kid, I really enjoyed just having to go pew, 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 pew. It actually works really well and doesn't get in the way of the arm articulation. You can still move the arm. You know, it's on its own individual hinge from the gimmick, but it still can do that. And then you can still have them with 2 hands. And it still kind of works, not nearly as well, because it now has the friction of both shoulders to work with. But still, man, the Quick Draw Clone Trooper is a great one. You might even be able to find the Shock Trooper for under $10 too, because this mold saw release as plain white Shock Trooper and 500 First. Even though people love 500 First, so I didn't find that one for under $10. So, what else can we find for under $10? You're going to find that a lot of these guys are pretty boring and look kind of the same. Let's go back to the realm of the lame with one of the very first Clone Trooper figures of all time. This is the original Attack of the Clones Clone Captain. Yeah, he's not hard to find. You can find him fairly cheap. Oftentimes you will find him in not good condition, like mine. Mine's a little discolored. So, oftentimes you won't see him, you know, all nice and pristine. But you can find him for under $10. You know, it's the Clone Captain. He was released, you know, single-carded in Attack of the Clones. He wasn't too hard to come by. And, yeah, he's very exciting. Look at his superposability. Yeah, he's not that good. I'm sorry. What else can you find? Let's go back to another really cool one. Speaking of superposability, not all of the time. You can't always find this guy for under 10 bucks, but I had some pretty good luck for finding this guy for around 10 bucks a few times on eBay in my journeys. The actual super articulated Phase 1 Trooper. You can still get this one for pretty cheap if you look hard enough and find a good listing. It's a good figure. This mold originally came out in like 2003, man. But still, you get some pretty good leg articulation. You can see you can't move the legs nearly as far forward as the quick draw that came out later. But still, man, when it comes to clone troopers, all these years later, in a couple years, this figure will be a 20-year-old figure, which is crazy. But even after those 20 years, I still consider this one of the definitive options for a Phase 1 clone trooper figure. And this guy saw a lot of re-releases in the Saga Legends lines that they kept doing. And that's such a good thing, too. Hasbro always had Saga Legends going. So you always had popular figures that constantly needed to be out on shelves. You always had Anakin and Obi-Wan and Vader and clone troopers and stormtroopers and, other characters. They don't do that anymore. They try with the archive line, but they're just as scarce as the actual Black Series. So, yay. Anyways, let's take a step back again. Let's keep it in the realm of Phase 1. And you can get the super articulated clone for around 10 bucks if you look hard enough. But you can pretty easily find the original sneak preview Attack of the Clones Clone Trooper for under $10. $10 or less. And yeah, this one, as you can see, looks very similar to the Captain. But this figure has prominently less articulation. It's pretty much just swivel. It's pretty much 5 POA. That's what this figure is. He's 5 POA. So... And some people are like, what's POA? Points of articulation. Hey, now you learned something. Congratulations. But yeah, this is a pretty simple figure. It's good to just have clone troopers in your army, just battling it out, because they're in a good pose, right? They're in a good pose. This is actually my brother's first clone trooper. Not this exact figure, but, this sneak preview clone trooper. So yeah, I mean, it's a good figure. It's not bad. It looks good. It's arguably the best Phase 1 helmet that they've ever done, because it's actually based off the CGI model. But yeah, still, you can see so far, we're 5 figures into this list. They're looking pretty plain, pretty basic, and they're not animated. But, thankfully, there's pretty much one animated clone trooper figure that I can still consistently find for $10 or less. Oddball. I can still find Oddball pretty cheap. I have a lot of Oddballs. I just grabbed a random one. Of course, I grabbed one with a little bit of discoloring, but that's okay. But yeah, man, you can still find Oddball pretty cheap. Now, granted, this can also just be doubled as a generic Phase 1 Clone Trooper pilot, but still, this is the only animated Clone Wars figure on this list. This is the only one now. All of the others, people are army building them, they're scooping them up, because people want clones. People crave clones. And there's, as you can see in this list, man, the ones that are left over after people have got, the definitive versions, the way better ones, the more detailed and articulated ones. There's still a few winners here. That's definitely a winner that you can still find him cheap. And the quick draw is definitely a clone trooper that is slept on. But still, when it comes to animated, the only reason you can still find this guy super cheap is because not everyone needs a ton of pilots. And also, this guy saw consistent re-release throughout the entire Clone Wars line. So yeah, we're getting there. We're getting there. Let's stay on the topic of pilots and jump back to Revenge of the Sith. You can find the Revenge of the Sith Phase 2 Clone Trooper pilot. Specifically, this is an ARC Trooper or an ARC 170 pilot. You can still find the ARC 170 pilots for $10 or less. This figure's not bad. He's got the swivel elbows. Some people really don't like that. As you can see, you can still get him in a good, arms behind the back pose. That's how I display most of mine. You can still have him holding a gun if you want. They still have the joints hinged in a way where you can hold a gun in 2 hands. They can pop off easily, though, so keep in mind you might find a clone pilot or two with a missing limb. But still, I found these guys in the box for around 10 bucks or less. So these guys are pretty easy to come across. There's also the black version, the all-black, Imperial version. That's another one that's pretty easy to come by. So yeah, he's definitely far from the most exciting clone trooper, but he's still one to get. So as you can see, for $10 or less, you can populate your vehicles. So that's a good thing. Hooray for that. Let's finish this off. We have a few left. Let's keep it in Revenge of the Sith for the rest of it. The Gunner, the ATTE Gunner from Revenge of the Sith, is still one that you can find for around $10 or less. That's a good thing, because this figure is another one that's really slept on. Sure, again, he has the swivel elbows. But you can get this arm looking relatively straight. This one is, unfortunately, stuck, always bent, and always kind of outward at the arm there. But his leg articulation is amazing. This has to be some of the best articulated legs on any clone trooper. This figure is really nice. You can remove the armor if you want, and have a cleaner Phase 2 clone trooper. And I actually have two of this figure. This one's really old, and like he's not yellowed. His plastic is just like stained and discolored. So that's kind of interesting. But yeah, I have this one that's really old, and then I have a newer, nicer condition one that I have without the armor. So you have options, man. And it's just such a nice figure. This is another one that a lot of people sleep on because there's like, oh, the body mold's kind of bad, but still, I like it. He's really cool. And keeping back in Revenge of the Sith, man, this guy also did see a re-release, but the Jetpack Clone Trooper is another one that's pretty good. Of course, you have the Jetpack. You can flip that, but still take that off, and you're left with a standard Phase 2 Clone Trooper. As you can see, a lot of standard Phase 2 going on in this list. But yeah, even though his arm articulation is a little limited, still got some good legs. You can still get him kneeling. It's still a good figure, man. I definitely recommend this one too, especially if you want to give him the jetpack and have him do some aerial action. It's actually pretty cool to have a couple of these guys kind of looking like they're up in the air. This is a really cool trooper in my opinion. I really like this one. And it did see a re-release in the Movie Heroes line. So again, you know, not a hard one to come by, but still, I understand it's not very exciting. It really isn't. So these are 9 of the 10 clones you can find for under $10. But I have to make number 1 this, because these guys are Stop ruining my video, buddy. Anyways, these guys are everywhere. I've already talked about these previously, but I just have to say it. The number 1 clone troopers you can find consistently for $10 or less are the knockoffs. The knockoffs that are out and about right now, these ones, the knockoffs that are out and about right now, these figures are so easy to come by. All you have to do is go on AliExpress, and then you can find a bundle of like 3 of them for like $15. you can buy like 5 of them for, I think it's like 5 for $20. Like, they're pretty inexpensive, and they're not bad quality either. I'm not condoning buying these knockoffs. I'm just saying, man, when it comes to finding clone troopers for $10 or less, these are definitely the most prominent in my searches, in my looking, in my research for this video. These knockoffs, and these can come in 212 flavor, 501st, Shock Trooper, Mace Windu's, Shadow Trooper, Commander Grease if you want to army build those. Gosh darn it, you freaking guy. There's a lot of options for this mold to be recolored, and there is plain Phase 2. That's kind of a running trend here. Half of this list can basically be plain Phase 2 if you decide to go that way. But yeah, man, it's kind of a shame that this is the most easy to get 3 3/4 inch clone trooper kind of figure out there. And honestly, like, I'm not condoning buying them, but if you would ask me, like, would you say, should I get this? I would be like, man, if you're okay with knockoffs, if you're okay with it, and if you're okay with the fact that some of their, like, you can see his wrist is kind of poking out a little bit, and like, I would not move their ankles at all, because I've had one break on me, and I've just heard that they break pretty easily. But, I mean, if you can condone some of the knockoff issues, like he's got a little bit of mold flashing on the shoulder there. The paint's usually pretty consistent on him, though, so that's good. But yeah, if you're okay with buying knockoffs, if, you know, you're okay with not having official product, then I'd say go for them. You know, if you want, I can't necessarily recommend them. I can't condone them, but if you feel comfortable with it, I mean, they're so inexpensive that you really don't have much to lose. I would say, you know, if you want to, you can go for it. But yeah, man, this is our new and not improved top 10 clone troopers you can find for $10 or less. Try to keep this list diverse. There's definitely other clone troopers you can find for $10 or less that I did not include in this video. There's definitely some others. This isn't all of them, but this is just a top 10 for 10 or less. So I had to keep it in the 10s, you know? But yeah, new and definitely not improved, because we don't have figures like this, which ironically enough is still a plain phase 2. But yeah, man, it's tragic. I am very fortunate to have been collecting clone troopers since clone troopers have been a thing. I was buying clone troopers before many of you watching this video were even alive, and that's insane. But yeah, man, I'm definitely grateful that I've been there since the beginning, but it's unfortunate that a lot of people have not, and you don't have a lot of options. Now, granted, a lot of these are plain phase 2 troopers and plain phase 1 troopers. So guess what? If you have some painting skill, you can paint up your own army. You know, you can make your own 212s or 501sts, or, you know, you can make your own Kicks and Hardcase and Jesse and all them. You can do it yourself, and that's nice. But still, it's a shame that Hasbro isn't capitalizing on this popularity, because you can see, looking at this list from the previous one I did, and I'll have it at the end of this video. I'll have it be the featured video. You can see from that old list, the variety and the awesome factor has definitely gone down when it comes to clones you can find for $10 or less. It's definitely gone down. Now, granted, some of those on the old list, they've just gone from 10 or less to like 15 or less or 20 or less. But still, you know, a lot of kids don't have a lot of money. And I was in a collector's store the other day, or I would say the other day, it was like a month or two ago, and there was a kid in there looking at the clone troopers. They were $15 each. He could only afford one, but he bought one because he was like, you know, I've got the money, I'm going to buy a clone, and I'll come back in a couple weeks and I'll get another one. You know, a lot of kids don't have, you know, like I said, a lot of kids don't have a lot of money, and unfortunately, looking at this list now, you don't have a lot of options. There's still options. You can still go out and find cool clone troopers for $10 or less if you look hard enough, if you find a good enough deal. But that's becoming rarer and rarer, unfortunately. So yeah, that's pretty much it with this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you to the patrons of Patreon. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much for your continued support, and from the support of everybody that watches these videos. Thank you so much. I genuinely do appreciate it. I know sometimes I don't sound sincere, but I'm genuinely sincere when I say that I don't deserve it and I love you guys. Like, we just hit 34,000 subscribers. I can't even keep up with that. I never even got around to doing a 30,000 subscribers special. We're already at 34. Oh my goodness. But anyways, thank you so much, guys. Let me know in the comments below what kind of clone trooper figures you've recently found for $10 or less. Alrighty, guys. Have a good one, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.